Network topology. On my screen, left hand side we have the Juniper SRX device, and on the right hand side we have the FortiGate firewall device, which is already configured. If you are interested in the configuration on FortiGate firewall, then you can refer the other video on the FortiGate firewall. I'll share the link for the same, and you will see the link for the tutorial on your screen. On Juniper, you have the external interface G0/0/0 with an IP of 192.168.0.184, which is going to be the outgoing interface for the IPsec Site-to-site tunnel. And the internal interface is going to be loopback 0 in our case, since we are testing, which will have an IP of 11.11.11.1/24. And all the interfaces here on the Juniper device is in the untrust zone, and the interfaces are in the VR untrust. So to keep things simple, we have all the interfaces in untrust zone, and we have listed them in the VR untrust. So you can see on my screen we have the overlapping subnet 11.11.11.0/24 behind the Juniper device, as well as behind the FortiGate firewall. Our intention is to make sure these two subnets communicate over the IPsec site-to-site tunnel, and the NATing is done on each devices on the basis of the external IP pool. For example, on Juniper, we will be using 1.1.1.0/24 for the translation, the static NAT, or the bidirectional NAT that we will be configuring on Juniper device, and on the FortiGate firewall it'll be 2.2.2.0/24. So 1.1.1.0/24 will be used for the bidirectional NAT here. For example, if you are initiating the traffic from 11.11.11.0/24 from behind the Juniper device, the source 11.11.11.0/24 will get translated to the IP pool 1.1.1.0/24 in sequential manner from the first IP until the last IP in the pool that we will be defining. So for example, 11.11.11.1 will be translated to 1.1.1.1, and 11.11.11.254 will get translated to 1.1.1.254. This is for the source NAT. When we do the destination NAT, so the traffic from the external device, which is the FortiGate firewall, will come on to the IP pool 1.1.1.0/24. For example, 1.1.1.1 will get translated to 11.11.11.1, and the last IP 11.11.11.254 will be mapped to 1.1.1.254. So this is how we will be hiding the subnet behind the Juniper and the FortiGate firewall using the external IP pool, and the translation will be done automatically on each devices. And below you can see the packet flow for the source 11.11.11.1 and destination 2.2.2.1. You initiate the traffic from behind the Juniper device from 11.11.11.1 towards 2.2.2.1 on Juniper device. The source 11.11.11.1 will get translated to 1.1.1.1 as per the configuration that we'll do, and the destination 2.2.2.1. So when it reaches the FortiGate firewall through the IPsec tunnel, the destination 2.2.2.1 will get translated to the actual IP, which is 11.11.11.1. And below you can see the reply packet from the source 11.11.11.1, which is the actual destination, initiating the reply to 1.1.1.1. And when it reaches the Juniper SRX device, the source will obviously be translated to 2.2.2.1, and the destination will be 1.1.1.1, which will get translated to the actual IP, which is 11.11.11.1. So that's how the packet flow will look like. Let's try to configure the Juniper SRX using CLI. I'm not going to cover the GUI part because Juniper GUI is awful and I do not want to waste my time configuring the same from GUI. So I have the article here. I'll share the link for the same in the description. You can refer the command for the configuration of VPN, NAT, and the security policy along with the routing. So let's try to configure the SRX device. So this is the SRX device, SRX 300, Junos 20.2, R3.9. Let me try to show you the configuration first. So I already have a few configuration. For example, G0/0/0.0 is already in untrust VR as shown in the diagram. So is the LO0. And I already have the configuration, which is the IP address 192.168.0.184. And we have allowed the ping, and we have allowed the IK on the interface. So G0/0/0.0 is already defined under the untrust. Let's try to check the configuration for our loopback interface. And you can see here loopback interface is already in untrust. IP address is already configured and it is listed under untrust VR. So we have the tunnel interface as well, which is ST0.0, and this is already configured. It is inside the untrust zone. IP address is configured 1.1.1.1. We have taken the tunnel interface as the numbered tunnel interface on Juniper device. Routing instance untrust. So now we have the configuration in place for all the three interfaces, and we have them configured with an IP, and we have listed them in the VR and the untrust zone. Next is the routing part, which is already configured. This is the routing. On the Juniper device, we will have to configure the static route for the remote subnet, which is going to be hidden behind 2.2.2.0/24. So on Juniper, we will have a static route pointing to the tunnel interface, which is ST0.0. So this is the static route configuration. Now come the VPN configuration. Let's try to configure the VPN. I'm going to copy paste the configuration to avoid the delay. I'm going to configure the phase 1 proposal. Authentication is pre-shared key. DH group is group 2. And authentication algorithm is SHA-256. And the encryption algorithm is going to be AES-256 CBC. Make sure you select the proper cipher suite as per the configuration on remote firewall. So I'm going to match everything from the remote configuration, which is on the FortiGate firewall. Lifetime is going to be 28800, which is in seconds. Security policy mode is main. So this is going to be main mode. And I'm going to select the proposal here for the IPsec for the IK policy that we have. Next is the pre-shared key configuration, which in our case is going to be ASCII clear text. And I'm going to match the same pre-shared key that we have configured on the FortiGate firewall, which is password. Now we will configure the gateway and we will call the IPsec policy, and we will define the remote address, which is going to be 108. You can refer the diagram. Port 1 on FortiGate 192.168.0.108, and the gateway, we do not want NAT traversal. The external interface is going to be GE0/0/0. You can check the diagram again. So now we will bind the local address to the gateway. So after that, we will configure the gateway as the IPsec version 1 only. So now phase 1 is configured. Now let's try to configure phase 2 proposal first, and then we'll call the proposal in the IPsec policy, and then we will add it to the IPsec phase 2. So the phase 2 proposal, we are going to use protocol ESP, and the authentication algorithm is going to be SHA-256. Encryption algorithm is going to be 256 CBC AES. Proposal lifetime in seconds, which is 3600. I'm going to match everything what I have configured on the remote firewall, which is the FortiGate firewall, and I'm going to add the proposal to the IPsec policy, and I'm going to bind the interface, which is our ST0.0, to our IPsec tunnel. In our case, VPN is SRX FG, and we have binded the tunnel interface ST0.0, and then we will add the gateway that we have configured to the IPsec. We do not need anti-replay, and we will call the IPsec policy here, and we will try to add this attribute which establishes the tunnel immediately. Will not have to wait for the traffic. Next is the security policy. Since our traffic is from the untrust zone to the untrust zone, since all the interfaces are in untrust zone, so our policy will be from untrust to untrust. So security policy from untrust. Source, I'm going to match it as any, but in your case you can have the defined source, and the destination as per your requirement. Destination, I'm going to keep it as any. Application is going to be ICMP all, and the IC, the last is the option to permit the traffic on the security policy from untrust to untrust. So now we have configured the security policy. Now next is the static NAT part. So static NAT is pretty simple. You just have to create the static NAT rule set, which is static in our case, and we are going to select the zone as untrust from zone untrust, and we are going to match the source address as 2.2.2.0/24, because in our case the traffic will be coming from 2.2.2.0 from the FortiGate firewall after the translation. And the destination is going to be 1.1.1.0/24, since the IP pool that we will be using on the SRX device will be 1.1.1.0/24. Next is the actual prefix. we are going to define the static NAT prefix 11.11.11.0/24. We will have to define the routing instance as untrust since our interfaces are listed in the VR untrust. So that will complete the NAT configuration. Make sure you add the proxy ARP entry on the interface. In our case, it is going to be ST0.0 tunnel interface. And we are starting from 1.1.1.2 to avoid any overlapping since our tunnel interface is already having an IP of 1.1.1.1. So to avoid the overlapping, we have started the ARP proxy ARP from 1.1.1.2 until 1.1.1.254, considering the last IP as the broadcast IP. Next is the commitment of the configuration. Let's try to commit the configuration and see if everything is working fine. You can see here the security association IKE, which is phase 1 security association, is up, and you can see the peer IP 192.168.0.108. This is the phase 2 security association. You can see the details. The phase 1 and phase 2 both are up. You can see the incoming SPI, outgoing SPI. Now let's try to check the connectivity. So this is the status of IKE Security Association phase 1 on the FortiGate firewall. And this is the phase 2 security association on the SRX device. You can check the inbound SPI and the outbound SPI to confirm the same. Now we will try to initiate some traffic from behind the FortiGate firewall from the test machine 11.11.11.3/24, and 11.11.11.3 will try to communicate to 11.11.11.1 using the external IP, which is 1.1.1.1. So this is the server behind the FortiGate firewall with an IP of 11.11.11.3. So you can see here. Now let's try to initiate some traffic. And you can see I'm able to ping. Let's try to check some details on the SRX device from the session information. And before that, let us try to check the details from the NAT rule that we have, just to figure out if the NAT rule is getting hit or not. You can see here the hit count is 5. We have 5 packet transmitted from the server behind the FortiGate firewall, which basically proves that the translation is working fine. Let's try to check the configuration and the session information to make sure everything is working fine and the translation is working properly as per the configuration. And you can see the traffic on the SRX device when we are initiating the traffic from behind the FortiGate firewall. So 2.2.2.3, which basically means that 11.11.11.3 is getting translated to 2.2.2.3, and the destination is 1.1.1.1. And the reply you can see 11.11.11.1 towards 2.2.2.3. So that basically proves that the configuration is working fine. Let's try to initiate some traffic from the overlapping IP 11.11.11.1 on the loopback interface towards the FortiGate internal port 4 IP 11.11.11.1. So on Juniper, source is going to be and since we are trying to reach 11.11.11.1 behind the FortiGate, so we will be using 2.2.2.1 to reach the same. And you can see I'm able to ping, and this is the traffic from behind the SRX device from 11.11.11.1 towards the other end subnet, and the overlapping IP 11.11.11.1. and I can show you the hit count as well. So you can see here hit count increased by 3 after sending 3 packets from behind the SRX device. And we can initiate some traffic towards the other subnet as well, which is 2.2.2.3, which is for the firewall, which is for the server behind the FortiGate firewall, the test machine. And you can see here I'm able to see the packet on the server behind the FortiGate firewall, and the source is 1.1.1.1. Since the traffic initiated from the SRX device 11.11.11.1 is getting translated to 1.1.1.1 on Juniper, and when it reaches the FortiGate 2.2.2.3 is getting translated to 11.11.11.3 and is reaching the actual destination, and you can see the reply packet 11.11.11.3 towards 1.1.1.1. So that basically proves that the configuration is working fine. That's all in this video. If you have any question, do leave them in the comment section, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.